The shocking truth about the Bellamy Dynasty's secret cult. Millions hidden in South Carolina? It began with whispers, rumors swirling like autumn leaves in a windstorm. The Bellamy family, once the pride of South Carolina's elite, now carried an extraordinary secret, one that could shake the very foundations of power and wealth. They weren't just rich. They were shrouded in mystery, leading a life few knew anything about. A clandestine cult, hidden away in the shadowy recesses of their sprawling estate, where millions were said to be buried deep in the earth, waiting for the right moment to resurface. The first clue appeared in the form of a single, unmarked envelope slipped under the door of the local newspaper office. Find the truth about the Bellamys. They don't want you to know what lies beneath. The envelope contained photographs, grainy snapshots of strange rituals performed under a cloak of darkness. The images sent chills down the spine. Robust men in hooded cloaks, chanting eerily, their faces obscured in shadows, their arms raised to the moon as though invoking something dark and powerful. People began to talk, their conversations hushed but electric, sparking curiosity and fear. The Bellamys were hardly ever seen in public. What were they hiding? And why were there reports of visitors disappearing after they went to the estate, like crumbs taken by a ravenous wind? Those eyes that watched from the mansion's towers were said to hold secrets stronger than any steel cage. Street rumors became urban lore. A woman claimed she could hear the distant sound of chanting at night, echoing through the pines like a warning bell, reverberating in her dreams long after she had turned in for the night. But when she dared to approach the sheer walls of the Bellamy estate, she felt an icy grip of fear tightening around her chest, a lump rising in her throat, forcing her to flee before she could even see what was inside. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But it didn't end there. A brave group of locals banded together, vowing to uncover the truth. Armed with flashlights and a growing sense of dread, they ventured toward the estate one fateful night, ready to confront whatever secrets lay hidden. The moon hung high and heavy, shrouded by ominous clouds that flickered with the promise of rain. As they crept through the overgrown path, the air thickened, resonating with palpable tension. What lives behind those towering gates? What waiting horrors or tremors of hope awaited them? With every step, the ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse, as if the earth itself was breathing, responding to their presence. They paused at the entrance, hearts pounding, the sound of their breaths muffled by the weight of anticipation. Then came a sudden rustling from within, a whisper on the wind that sent them reeling back. Who or what was inside? As the echoes faded, one thing was certain. They were about to plunge into the darkness of the Bellamy secret. Would this unspeakable truth spell disaster? Or might it reveal a treasure buried not just in the ground, but deep within their own souls? The answer lay just beyond the gates. Fear crackled in the air as the group stood frozen at the gates, eyes wide with uncertainty. They whispered hurriedly, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. Should they turn back? The rustling continued, taunting them. The sounds weren't just wind. They were the very essence of every horror story they had ever heard. But courage surged through them like wildfire, igniting a shared resolve. Let us go. No backing down now, one of them said, his voice barely louder than a harsh breath. They stepped forward, their flashlights flickering nervously as if sensing the danger lurking within. The iron gates groaned open, revealing a path that wound like a snake, swallowed by shadows. As they ventured deeper into the estate, the atmosphere thickened. They reached an expansive clearing shrouded in darkness. Giant oaks loomed overhead, their branches twisting like gnarled fingers, grasping at the sky. The hush felt unnatural, as if the forest itself held its breath. The chanting, low and rhythmic, rose from the earth like an echo of despair, wrapping around them like a cloak. "What's going on in there?" whispered Clara, her eyes darting to the mansion that stood stark against the night sky, illuminated only by flashes of lightning that seemed to pierce the veil of darkness. "I don't know," answered Jake, his voice trembling, "but we need to find out." A flash of light illuminated a dark figure flitting near the mansion, causing hearts to race and instincts to scream. The group huddled closer, each of them unwilling to give in to fear, yet longing to flee. "Come on, we can't let that stop us," Michael urged, clutching the flashlight tightly. "Stay close." They crept toward the entrance. A huge wooden door adorned with strange carvings stood slightly ajar, the hinges groaning in protest as they pushed through. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of something metallic. Blood? The thought sent shivers down their spines, but there was no turning back now. The room they entered was vast, filled with flickering candlelight. Shadows danced along the walls, revealing images that twisted reality into grotesque forms, faces of people contorted in ecstasy and horror. In the center stood an altar, draped in dark fabric, surrounded by a circle of flickering candles. There were objects scattered about, crude charms made from bone and twisted branches. This was the heart of their secret. Sudden movement caught their attention. A handful of robed figures emerged from the shadows, faces hidden beneath hoods. Their chanting grew louder, reverberating through the very bones of the house. "What do we do?" Clara gasped. Panic set in, the overwhelming realization that they had faced something beyond their comprehension. A world that existed in the dark corners of their imaginations. "Run!" someone shouted. The group spun around, racing back the way they came, the whispers of the cult echoing in their ears. Fear propelled them forward, but the chilling sensation that they might not escape lingered like a noose tightening around their throats. Outside, the storm burst forth, torrents of rain hammering down like judgment. They sprinted through the winding path, slipping on mud, hearts racing with adrenaline, the terror of what they encountered driving them onward. Yet amid the chaos, one question loomed larger than the storm itself: what were the Bellamys truly hiding? Standing by the gate, drenched and gasping for breath, they stared back at the mansion that loomed, a dark titan in the night. "We can't leave it like this," Jake breathed, a flicker of determination sparking in his eyes. They had to return. There were more secrets waiting to be uncovered before it was too late. But what would the Bellamys do if they found out? The rain pounded relentlessly, washing away the fear but not the dread that clung to their skin like a second layer. Heartbeats thudded in their ears, drowning out the storm as they gathered around Jake, their leader, eyes wide with the adrenaline of their escape. "We can't just walk away after that," Jake insisted, wet strands of hair plastered to his forehead. The glint in his eyes was fierce. He was both terrified and hungry for the truth. "We have to go back. Now." Clara shivered, glancing nervously at the now ominous silhouette of the estate. "But what if they see us?" she whispered, casting her gaze back to the mansion that had come to life in a terrifying, swirling darkness. "I don't care. We need to know what we're dealing with," he replied, breathing heavily as the others exchanged glances, their uncertainty blooming again. Michael's face scrunched up, wrestling with fear. "What if we're not meant to know? This feels like meddling with stuff that should stay buried." But deep down, he, too, felt the allure of the bizarre, the forbidden. "Isn't that why we came here?" Jake challenged, taking a step forward. "To uncover the truth? We can't be scared forever." The words ignited a spark among them, and without another word, they turned back toward the estate. Each step felt like sinking further into quicksand, the shadows wrapping around them tighter. The gate creaked on its rusted hinges, a bitter welcome back to their nightmare. They moved stealthily this time, their flashlights illuminating the path, but shadows danced with every flicker, creating eerie shapes that seemed to taunt their resolve. The mansion loomed larger, darker. The chanting had ceased, swallowed by the storm, but the air thrummed with an ominous energy that sent a visceral chill racing down their spines. Once inside, the heavy door felt like the closing of a lid on a coffin. They stood frozen, muscles tense, breaths shallow. The candlelight flickered, casting frenetic shadows that seemed to mock any hope of safety. What had been abandoned felt like a graveyard, and the altar now looked even more sinister in the quiet. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence, a soft scrape, like claws against wood. They froze, eyes darting toward the source. A figure flickered in the candlelight, momentarily visible before darting back into the shadows. An instinctual panic surged through them. "Did you see that?" Michael whispered, his voice trembling. Then they saw it, a glimpse of a face hidden beneath the dark hood, eyes glaring back at them. And then nothing, just the flicker of candles illuminating empty space. Clara gulped, her heart racing. "What do they want? Why us?" Jake, swallowing hard, stepped forward. "We make them talk. We find out what's going on, what the Bellamys really want." His voice resounded with a fragile conviction. But as they pushed deeper into the depths of the mansion, the temperature dropped drastically, and the scent of decay filled the air. A new sense of urgency gripped them. They moved toward a staircase leading downward, the dark maw beckoning like the abyss. At the bottom, they could hear the rush of whispers, barely audible but winding through the shadows like a serpent. "Maybe we should just," Clara began. But Jake cut her off. "No, we have to go down there." He was right, and against their better judgment, they descended into the unknown. It felt like stepping into a vortex, every heartbeat echoing through the darkness. With every step, they felt their bravery teetering, swinging between adrenaline and sheer terror. As they reached the bottom, the whispers intensified, swarming around them like angry bees. Their flashlights sputtered, flickering ominously, casting eerie shapes against the damp stone walls. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. Silence fell heavy, suffocating. And then, something shifted in the shadows ahead, something big. They huddled close, the creeping dread that they had crossed a threshold they could never return from clawing at their minds. They weren't just stepping into the darkness. They were diving into the heartbeat of horror. "Do you hear that?" Jake murmured, but it was too late. The shadows burst forth, closing in, and they realized all too late the true darkness of the Bellamy estate was just beginning to reveal itself. What had they really stumbled into? The air thickened as they stood at the bottom of the stairs, the shadows closing in, swallowing their light. Jake felt the weight of the moment. Something primal told him to turn back while he still could, but curiosity gnawed at him like an insatiable beast. "What was that?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. She instinctively pressed closer to Jake, her breath hot against the chilly air, as if sharing warmth could shield them from the suffocating darkness. I don't know," Jake replied, his heart hammering against his ribcage. Each moment felt stretched, the seconds morphing into eternal silence, a taut string ready to snap. Then came the voice. It was low, guttural, echoing off the stone walls like a chilling wind. "You shouldn't be here," it hissed, wrapping each word in a sinister promise. The group shivered collectively, cold creeping through their veins. "Let us go. We should leave now," Michael blurted out, eyes wide with terror as he stepped back, his instincts screaming for him to escape. But Jake's stubbornness wouldn't let him yield. "No, we can't leave without understanding what's happening," he argued, though his voice quivered slightly under the weight of the unknown. A sudden clatter echoed through the hall, sending a jolt through them. They all turned, flashlights trembling in their hands. A small, tattered book lay cracked open on the stone ground, pages fluttering unnaturally, as if some unseen force was stirring it to life. "What's that?" Clara breathed. The further they ventured into the mansion, the more unsettled she felt, like a small boat tossed in a storm. Jake stepped forward, reaching for the book. The moment his fingers touched the cover, the temperature in the room plunged further. He stumbled back, gasping. Visions cut through his mind like a knife, rituals, faces shrouded in dark cloaks, screams lost to the void, and a cavernous room pulsating with energy. "We need to go," Michael's voice broke through his thoughts. But Jake shook his head, a flash of determination igniting in his eyes. "No, whatever this is, it's what we came for," he said, voice steadying against the terror wrapping around them. They had come too far to turn back now, and he picked up the book and opened it, revealing sketches and symbols that made his stomach churn. "This is a ritual," he mumbled, squinting to decode the arcs and lines. "A gathering, a sacrifice. Seriously? This can't be real," Clara exclaimed, stepping back in disbelief, the candlelight reflecting horror in her eyes. But the whispers began again, rising like a wave, a cacophony of voices urgent and pleading. Each syllable ignited an ember of fear, mingling with the shadows, wrapping around them like a suffocating cloak. "Help us bring him back," they begged, a collective sorrow pushing against the walls of sanity. Each word clawed at their souls, urging them to dive deeper into the abyss. Who do you want us to bring back?" Jake shouted, brimming with defiance. But his question dissolved into the air, unanswered. Then, without warning, the ground trembled beneath them. Dust and debris cascaded from above, a low rumble building into a roar. A crack appeared in the wall, and out of the fissure poured an unearthly glow, illuminating the room like a malevolent sunrise. "Run!" Clara screamed, her instincts finally overriding the dread. The group turned, hearts racing, feet pounding the stone floor. But just as they reached the staircase, a shadow seeped from the crack, expanding, warping into a figure cloaked in darkness. The whispers swelled to a deafening crescendo, drowning out their frantic breaths. "Stay," it echoed, the voice rippling with power as the figure advanced. The shadow stretched towards Jake, and in that moment, icy terror gripped him tight. They couldn't turn and run. They were ensnared by an unseen force, each breath a battle against the paralyzing fear closing in. And then, abruptly, it all stopped: the noise, the glow, the pulsing dread. They stood, breathless, suspended in fate. "What do we do now?" Michael asked, eyes wide with realization that their curiosity had indeed led them to an inescapable trap. But before they could comprehend their next move, the glowing crack widened, revealing a swirling vortex that beckoned them closer. What if this is our way out?" Jake began, but the thought weighed heavy as unease pooled in his stomach. As the shadows danced closer, uncertainty dripped like sweat from their brows. Would they dare cross that line? The looming question reverberated in his mind and echoed back at him as the vortex wavered. Do we step forward into the unknown? But as the figure reached out, each of them felt a tugging and instinct to step closer into the terrifying unknown. Against reason, against fear. Jake Clara's voice trembled as the edges of the vortex shimmered. Do we take the leap, or do we choose to fight? In that moment, a choice hung in the air like the storm outside, raining dread heavy on their shoulders. A desperate call to arms against darkness that promised revelations beyond any horror they had known. And deep inside, Jake realized there was no turning back now. As ancient words echoed around them, filled with fury and longing, he could only wonder what horrors awaited as they stepped into the heart of the Bellamy Dynasty's legacy. What would they unleash in their quest for truth? The swirling vortex pulsated, its edges flickering with an unsettling light that beckoned them forward. Shadows danced in terrible harmony around Clara, Michael, and Jake, casting frantic shapes against the stone walls. Jake Clara's voice was barely audible, a thread of panic. I don't think we should, but the grip of the abyss was strong. Jake felt it, a magnetic pull towards the unknown, a force that seemed to whisper promises of unfathomable power and ancient secrets. The cold air wrapped around them like a vice, nearly suffocating in its intensity. Ignoring Clara's protest, Jake took a tentative step forward, his pulse pounding in his ears. Each beat felt like a countdown, urging him onward. The shadows twisted, forming a jagged outline of the cloaked figure, its presence looming larger, darker. Stay here, Michael shouted, trying to break the spell that entranced Jake. This isn't a game. We don't know what's on the other side. The figure took a step closer, a low growl echoing from its depths, a response to Michael's fear. Come, seek what you cannot understand, it encouraged, every syllable dripping with malice. Clara shivered, a chill running down her spine. What if it's a trap? What if this is what whatever it is wants? Jake hesitated, a flicker of doubt cracking through his bravado. The whispers grew louder in the back of his mind, chaotic yet strangely alluring. They were calling to him, offering glimpses of forbidden knowledge and power to wield. Images flashed visions of the past, severed ties, and lost souls pulled into darkness. And what if we don't? Jake finally muttered, adrenaline sharpening his senses. What if we stay here and it consumes us? An anguished screech echoed from the vortex, sending vibrations through the floor. Bring him back, the voices cried, merging into a haunting symphony that reverberated through the hall, surrounding them with despair. We can't, Clara whimpered, stepping back, her eyes darting from the shadow to Jake's determined face. You don't even know what you're risking. Aren't we already risking everything by being here? Michael shot back, but his voice was thick with fear. This isn't just a story anymore. This is real, Jake. Jake's heart raced as he weighed their words, the pulse of the otherworldly glow enticing. We have to know, he shouted over the cacophony. What if this is the key to understanding everything that happened here? We've all felt it, the history, the sorrow. Without waiting for an answer, he lunged towards the vortex, the shadows stretching to embrace him. Clara grabbed hold of his arm, panic etched on her face. Jake, don't, you're going to get us killed. But as their gazes locked, Jake felt something shift, a bond forged from desperation and longing for answers that had haunted them since they arrived. He shook free, determination etching deeper lines on his brow. The shadows whispered his name, coaxing and teasing, promising revelations. Clara, you have to trust me, he urged, glancing back at her as the darkness clutched at his legs like icy fingers. I feel it, it's calling. The horrifying truth morphed into a tangible force, and with one last look at his friends, Jake steeled himself and stepped into the swirling chaos. A blinding light engulfed him, swirling colors blotting out all sight. A cacophony of voices swelled around him, mingling with his heartbeat. Visions slammed into him, people in agony, pleads for help, chants and rituals that echoed long before they were born. Then, harshly, everything went dark. The suffocating silence that followed, Jake gasped for breath, its suddenness overwhelming. The weight of his surroundings felt unfamiliar, oppressive. Jake! Clara's voice filtered through the void, frantic and distant. Where are you? Clara! He cried back, but the sound swallowed in the silence was haunting. Every fiber of his being screamed to reach out, to find her. But that call was swallowed whole by whispers dancing in murky corners of his mind. The shadows coiled tighter around him, warping the air, feeding on his fear. You are not alone, a voice echoed, chilling him to the bone. In that moment, Jake realized his choice had triggered something profound, something that could rip their fates apart. Just as a flicker of hope ignited within him, the darkness whispered back. Would you bring him back? Would you pay a price? The air shimmered around him, shadows mingling with flashes of light. The haunting truth remained veiled, but the impending revelation loomed. What dark secret awaited them on this side? And would they pay the toll it demanded? Panic surged through Jake's veins, a raw pulse of dread and curiosity. The sensation of being watched came from all sides. It was like the walls of the void were alive, pressing in on him and whispering secrets too terrible to comprehend. The chilling voice lingered, echoing within, growing louder. They can be saved, it crooned, darkness oozing with the promise of something more. Your friends need you. Bring them forth at a cost. Who are you? Jake gasped, his throat tight. What do you want? The darkness around him coiled, vibrating in response to his question, pulling memories from every corner of his mind, their laughter, their adventures, the heaviness of loss. Do you wish to know the truth? The voice taunted, a slithering tone that wrapped around him like chains. You must choose. Images whirled before him, striking flashes of Clara and Michael, intertwined with shadows, their faces twisted in terror. There was a flicker of hope when he saw Clara reach for him, her eyes wide and desperate. Jake, please. Her voice pierced through the darkness, as sharp and urgent as a knife. You have to fight it. Come back. The vortex pulsated, pulling at him with overwhelming gravity, emotions slamming against him like waves. Guilt surged, mixing with determination. Would he abandon them? Suddenly, A surge of energy crashed over him. Pay the price, the voice came again, insistent. Join what was lost, witness what was never meant to be. The ground beneath him trembled, warping the darkness with static energy. It ignited the depths of his mind, sparking memories of ancient texts, forgotten rituals, a cult that worshipped this very darkness. The Bellamy Dynasty. His chest tightened. What if it was all true? What if the power that lay ahead was what those lost souls had sought? But at what cost? Clara's face twisted in silence, her mouth moving as if screaming, but the sound was swallowed by the ravenous void. Choose, the voice ordered again, sharp as a whip. With a sudden clarity, Jake grasped the weight of his decision. It wasn't only his fate he was contemplating, but also Clara and Michael's. Let them go, he shouted into the void, his resolve stealing. I want to play your game. Instantly, the shadows recoiled, hissing and twisting in anger. But Jake felt something shift within him. A sudden rush exploded through his veins. Streaks of light began to penetrate the blackness, illuminating grotesque figures hovering around him. Trapped souls seeking salvation, caught in a nightmare of their making. Jake's heart raced. This was no safe haven, but a prison. Fool! The voice boomed, mixing with the anguished cries of those trapped. You can't turn back now. The swirling darkness grew furious, its energy twisting painfully around him. Memories of Clara, each laugh and every tear, surged like a river, propelling him forward. I'll do anything to save them, he shouted defiantly. The words tasted like fire on his tongue. The shadows recoiled momentarily, giving him space to breathe, but the mounting chaos quickened. With every ounce of strength, Jake pushed against the darkness, calling for Clara, calling for Michael, his voice rising above the tumult. Find your way to me. You're not lost. Fight. Just then, a searing pain ripped through him as the shadows clawed at his resolve, overwhelming and wrenching. You'll pay dearly, the voice hissed, drowning him in its contempt. Suddenly, just as the pain reached a breaking point, a blinding light consumed him, pushing against the walls of darkness, revealing fleeting glimpses of Clara and Michael reaching back through the veil, their expressions wavering between hope and fear. But in that instant of desperation, Jake saw an ancient scroll slithering through the darkness, adorned with symbols, a seal from the Bellamy cult. Would he reach it? What secrets would it uncover? And outwardly shifted, it led Jake to one terrifying possibility. Maybe the price wasn't just for him, but for all of them, a sacrifice steeped in ancient shadows. As the light flickered and faded, he teetered on the brink of the unknown. His next choice could change everything. Would he risk it all, even if it meant revealing a truth that could tear them apart forever? Jake felt the light slip away as darkness crashed back over him, a wave of despair lapping at his resolve. The ancient scroll danced at the edge of his consciousness, its symbols swirling like a storm inside him. He could almost decipher them, but the weight of the void was suffocating. Do you really want to know the truth? The disembodied voice taunted, its tone thick with mockery. Knowledge comes with a cost. Nothing is free in this world or the next. He clenched his fists, anger igniting his spirit. I don't care about your games. Let them go. I'll find another way. But the shadows laughed, a chilling sound that echoed around him. Oh Jake, you're so naive. The cost of knowledge is a sacrifice. You must choose, the scroll or your friends. As realization sank in, Jake's heart pounded violently. The Bellamy Dynasty had whispered of secrets in the darkness, of power that could bend time and space. What if gaining that power could save Clara and Michael? Was it worth the price, whatever that price might be? From the depths of the swirling shadows, Clara's face reemerged, a beacon amidst the chaos. Jake, please, don't listen. You must trust yourself. Her voice trembled, strained. Clara, Jake screamed, reaching out. His fingers slipped through the void, grasping at the impossibility of touch. Every second burned, and the shadows pressed in tighter, threatening to crush his spirit. What's your choice? The voice sneered, its breath chilling him to the bone. You dwell on the past, yet it's your future that hangs in the balance. Frantic, Jake forced himself to focus on the scroll, his eyes narrowing. He recognized it now. It was etched with the sigils of the Bellamy cult, symbols representing binding and release, life and death. Could he use that knowledge to save them, to break their chains? Desperation surged through his veins. I'll take the scroll. In that instant, a surge of energy exploded from within him, ripping through the darkness. Blinding light erupted, shattering the shadows like glass. Echoes of tortured souls screamed, swirling around him, their despair hanging like a noxious cloud. Your choice, the voice thundered, twisting in agony. Jake stumbled forward through the light, lunging for the scroll. As his fingers made contact, the symbols flared and pulsed, filling his mind with ancient secrets. The weight of sacrifice hung heavy in the air like a storm cloud, but there was also clarity. Visions of Clara and Michael flickered at the edges, images tangled in desperation and hope. No, he shouted, shaking his head against the pull of the darkness. I will save them. A price was paid long before this moment. With each word, he felt a connection solidify. The scroll released a shockwave, pushing against the shadows. They screamed, furious and panicked. Suddenly, fragments of memories flashed before him, not just from Clara and Michael, but from the Bellamy legacy. Dust and ashes, dread and glory, revealing secrets long buried beneath history. Life cannot mend what death has severed. The voice screeched, but it was too late. The scroll pulsed, resonating with power. Clara, Michael, he cried out, summoning their names into the tempest of energy that surged around him. The darkness began to fracture, crumbling under the force of his will. Yet in that triumph, a cold realization slithered into his heart. The scroll wouldn't just alter their fate. It might unleash the very nightmare the Bellamy cult had bound. Could he control it? The air crackled as the shadows twisted, pulling at him, and Jake had to wonder, would his choice swing open a door to destiny or doom? As Clara's desperate face twisted into one of hope, the reality struck him like a blade. He had entered a pact with the darkest corners of existence. What irrevocable change awaited him once he unleashed the scroll's hidden truths? Jake, please, don't. Clara's warning yanked him back, but it was too late. The light flared, and the shadows howled. Would he find salvation amongst the ruins of their past, or would they all be lost forever? The echoes of the Bellamy Dynasty roared in his ears, a catchy chorus rising around him that begged for release, awaiting the answer to a question wrapped tightly in the heart of their nightmare. The light exploded into a blinding cascade, swallowing Jake whole. For a moment he was adrift, weightless, suspended in the balance between salvation and oblivion. Voices swirled around him, clashing, conflicting, echoing. Dreams turned nightmarish. Clara's cries tangled with booming laughter, a cacophony of despair. As the brightness finally dimmed, Jake found himself standing in a vast, shadow-laden chamber. Colossal stone pillars stretched high into the darkness, high enough to disappear into the void above. They loomed like ancient sentinels, guardians of secrets that had long since turned to whispers. The air felt thick and humid, almost alive, thrumming with the energy of untold stories and buried truths. Before him lay the scroll, its parchment appearing to pulse with a life of its own. Jake's heart raced as he stepped closer, drawn to it like a moth to a flame. But as he reached out, an icy wind howled through the chamber, and reality trembled around him. What have you done? The disembodied voice thundered, blending with the shadows. It reverberated through his bones, a chilling reminder of the choice he had made. You've unleashed power beyond your comprehension. Let my friends go, Jake shouted, forcing courage into his voice. He felt the tremors of fear clawing at his insides. Clara and Michael needed him. They were his lifeline, the reason he had dared to step into the chaos of this darkness. Foolish boy, you think your grasp can contain that which is already unleashed? The voice echoed, rising into a crescendo of cruel laughter that bounced off the walls. The scroll emitted a warm glow, contrasting the icy grip of terror that had wrapped around Jake's heart. He could feel vibrations coursing through him, secrets begging to be decoded. But the shadows whispered more, promising power and anguish intertwined. Listen to them. Jake, embrace what you have set into motion. The curls of darkness swirled tighter around him, tugging insistently, seducing him with the thrill of dominion. In that instant, Jake felt a dark tether binding him to the scroll. Visions surged through him, glimpses of the Bellamy cult's history rushed in, intoxicating and terrifying. Their rituals, powered by blood and sacrifice, reaching back generations, echoed like a heartbeat through time. He could see Clara and Michael, trapped in a web spun from the same darkness. Fight it! Clara's voice pierced through the din, strong and desperate. Jake's pulse quickened. He felt divided, caught between a yearning for the truth and an emerging dread for the cost of that truth. The scroll's warmth transformed into a pulse, beating in sync with his heartbeat, urging, enchanting. What is your desire? The voice cooed, seductive yet sinister. Power to reshape fate? To save them? Or to unleash what shouldn't be freed? A shadow melted forward, forming a figure shrouded in the deepest black. It moved with inhuman grace, emerging from the void like smoke, a creature molded from the very fabric of nightmares. Its eyes glinted with malice, and a chilling smile spread across its face. Join us, Jacob, it said, its voice a silken whisper that sent shivers cascading down his spine. Together, we can rewrite destiny, feast on the despair of those who stood against the Bellamy legacy, make them tremble at our might. No! Jake cried out, the strength in his voice surprising even himself. I'm not here to join you. But the struggle of wills began, light clashing against unfathomable darkness. Jake's every muscle contracted, every nerve igniting in a fight for clarity, for control. He focused on Clara's face, the last flicker of hope in an existence teetering on the brink. Suddenly, the scroll erupted with white-hot energy. Waves of power washed through the chamber, knocking Jake off his feet. He cried out, struggling to maintain his grip on reality as the shadows recoiled from the light, hissing in fury. The pulse intensified, surging through him until he felt like a lightning rod. Would it cleanse their fates or consume him whole? With a last desperate push, Jake reached for the scroll again, channeling every ounce of determination into his grasp. That moment, decisions reverberated through time like an echo. The question hung suspended. Would he decipher the scroll and conquer the night, or succumb to the darkness and bind himself to the Bellamy legacy? As the shadows writhed and lashed out in a desperate frenzy, one simple truth burned bright. He was no longer only fighting for Clara and Michael. He was battling for his own soul. And somewhere, in the dark void, a chilling silence crashed like thunder, leaving him fraught with the cold grip of an intoxicating promise, asking what would be the price of his victory. The energy from the scroll enveloped Jake, drenching him in warmth that was both comforting and terrifying. He struggled against the overwhelming sensations, anchoring himself to the thought of Clara and Michael. He could almost hear Clara's heart racing, her breath hitching as fear coursed through her. Jake! Her voice sharpened through the storm of shadows, pushing him closer to the light. He could sense her desperation, a tether pulling him back from the abyss. The shadows slashed at him, clawing for his thoughts, attempting to drown his resolve. Join us, Jacob, the creature beckoned, its black form twisting and swirling. Give in to the truth. Accept your destiny. The world around him morphed, swirling colors melting into twisting shapes. Jake clenched his fists, a surge of fury firing through him. No, you can't have me. As if reacting to his defiance, the light from the scroll surged, sending bursts of brilliance that shattered the shadows like glass. Terrifying wails echoed in the chamber as darkness recoiled, revealing glimpses of a landscape filled with memories, his childhood, family gatherings, and the weight of choices that had haunted him. Face it, the voice boomed, growing louder. You have already chosen. You delude yourself thinking you can rewrite fate. Embrace the darkness. I won. Jake's shout echoed, reverberating through the chamber. He could feel the sweat trickling down his brow, heart pounding as he fought to remember the boy he was before the Bellamy legacy had corrupted everything. With every ounce of strength, He focused on the scroll, its glow becoming a beacon in the darkness. "I choose my path," he declared. The chamber trembled as the ground shook beneath him. The pillars pulsated, flickering as if trying to sustain the straining balance between light and dark. Jake was losing himself, the pull of the shadows threatening to consume him whole. But then something unexpected pierced through the chaos, a sudden vision of Clara's face, so vivid it almost felt physical. A tear rolled down his cheek. She was fighting too, he could feel her strength. "Clara," he shouted, calling out to the phantom image of her courage. "I won't let you go." With renewed determination, he grasped the scroll tightly, feeling its power seeping deep into his palms, igniting a fire within him. A voice within urged him, deeper than the shadows, a promise of clarity and purpose. And then Jake made the boldest move. He whispered a plea, barely audible above the thunder of his racing heartbeat. "Show me." In an instant, the chamber flooded with brilliant light. The shadows recoiled violently as scenes flashed before Jake, the foundation of the cult. The betrayals, the bloodlines tangled in horrid rites. He gasped, visions hitting him like waves. The Bellamy history didn't just hold power. It hid family ties, buried secrets sprawling across generations. Michael and Clara were connected in ways he had never understood. It was a twisted legacy, one that threatened to consume them all. "You believe you can uncover the truth?" The creature taunted, vibrant malice dripping from its every word. "You have no idea what you're unleashing." Jake's resolve hardened as he faced the creature. "I'm not afraid. I'm seeking liberation. For me and for them." With that, he thrust the scroll upwards, a blinding burst of energy shooting forth, illuminating the chamber and chasing the shadows into a corner. The power radiated, claws of darkness retreating into the blackness. As the light enveloped him, clarity washed over everything. But also dread. He knew this was just the beginning. What lay ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty, and the dangerous threads of his own reality were unraveling, needing to be rewoven into something brand new. Yet, even in the brilliance of victory, a voice lingered, hissing menacingly from the shadows. "This is but the first chapter of your fate." Suddenly, the ground shook violently again, causing Jake to stumble, heart racing at the realization he'd awakened something that shouldn't have stirred. What had he really unleashed, and what would it mean for Clara and Michael? With the chamber shaking with veiled threats, Jake knew he had to act fast. As darkness seeped back like smoke, he braced himself. What if I can't control it? Time was running out, and he had no choice but to discover the heritage of the Bellamy cult and the truths that twisted and turned like a serpent waiting to strike. The danger ahead loomed larger than ever. Asking, was he truly ready to fight for everything he loved? The chamber shook violently as the light from the scroll continued its relentless push against the dark. Jake felt its energy coursing through him, pulsing with the weight of countless destinies intertwined. "I must find a way," he shouted into the growing chaos, the echo of his voice reverberating against the ancient stone walls. But shadows began creeping back, swirling like smoke, and Jake quickly realized that simply possessing the scroll wouldn't be enough. It was one thing to uncover the truth. It was another entirely to control what was unleashed. Clara and Michael were counting on him, their fates intertwined in the aftermath of his choice. "I won't let you down." The emotions surged through him, fueling his resolve. He closed his eyes, grounding himself as memories of their laughter flashed before him, moments of joy that now felt fragile against the impending darkness. "Clara," he called out, his voice echoing across the hall. "Michael." The incantations in the air grew louder, each syllable dripping with foreboding, threatening to swallow him whole. Sudden clarity struck. The scrollless energy needed direction and intent to bind or to liberate. He grasped the thread of power, weaving his focus on the faces of his friends, steering the scroll's magic towards saving them from the depths they faced. "You don't get to claim us," Jake shouted defiantly into the void, the fire of determination igniting within him. "We choose our destiny." With a fierce grip, he pulled the scroll close to his chest. The glowing symbols began to arrange themselves before him, forming a sigil he recognized from one of the blurry visions. Together, he called, feeling the shadows writhe with anger as if retaliating against the potential bond forming. Together we can break this cycle. The heat from the scroll intensified, responding to every ounce of Jake's conviction. He envisioned Clara and Michael, trapped yet resilient in the dark edges of his mind. Bring them back, he demanded, channeling the energy through the air as he formed the sigil with his own voice, steady and true. As the last syllable slipped from his lips, an explosion of light erupted, flooding the room and pushing back against the darkness. Visions of Clara and Michael materialized within the glow, their faces contorting from fear to hope. "Jake!" Clara cried out, her voice piercing through the haze. Suddenly, he felt their presence merge with his, 3 heartbeats synchronizing into a singular rhythm, a bond overcoming the shadows. The layers of darkness began to retreat, rolling back like fog in the morning light. "Fight!" he urged, directing his force toward their souls. The shadows hissed in protest, unraveling the moment they intersected with the light. "You cannot exist in this space." The shadows shrieked, and a wave of scarlet energy surged outward, encircling the 3 friends in a cocoon of radiant power. When the cacophony dimmed, Jake opened his eyes. The dark chamber transformed before him, collapsing into a series of fractured reflections. Clara and Michael stood beside him, breathing heavily, tears of relief mingling with the remnants of dread. "We made it," Clara gasped, gripping Jake's arm for reassurance, while Michael searched the room, surveying their surroundings. "What have we unleashed?" Jake felt the fabric of the Bellamy legacy, a weight pressing against their minds, collective memories shared and forgotten, longing to be untangled. "We have the power to shape our future," he said, feeling emboldened. "But we must choose wisely. Together, we can uncover all the secrets," Michael added, his eyes sweeping the room. "We've faced worse than this." As they joined hands, a wave of warmth spread through the trio, reconnecting them deeper than any darkness had pulled apart. "Let us find a way to seal this," Jake urged, determination burning bright within him. The air hummed with energy as they concentrated, channeling their shared willpower into the scroll. Together, they committed to sealing the darkness, ancient powers twisting and reforming under the weight of their collective hope. "We are stronger than fear," they declared, voices echoing in unity, illuminating the shadows with a final surge of energy. They sealed the scroll, light bursting forth in a blinding wave that enveloped the chamber, causing everything to shimmer like dew in the morning sun. The past faded, buried beneath the newfound strength. And as they stood together, the weight of history lifted from their shoulders, the fate that had once been laid out before them now rewritten in their collective blood, an end to the dark legacy of the Bellamys. But it was just the beginning. What lay ahead was theirs to uncover, a tapestry woven of choices, promises, and fresh bonds laden with resilience as the last remnants of darkness peeled away. Jake turned to his friends, their eyes shining brightly with renewed hope. "Let us go home." And with that, the remnants of the Bellamy legacy faded into mere whispers, drawn back into the shadows, their hold broken. Joy rose like a phoenix, the 3 friends emerging into the light of a new dawn, ready to face whatever came next together. Now that this epic journey has come to a close, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the magic alive. And flood the comments section with your reactions, theories about this ending, and what you think comes next. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our community through these actions.